Hi, Salamanca. So I was asked by Emilio to tell you a little bit about Italy. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was an entrepreneur about 15 years ago. More or less, I was on the other side of that. I founded my company after some work as a manager. Then I raised the money, IPO'd the company, sold the company, and put the money back into other startups. And so after a sabbatical, I started to invest and be angel investing. And now we are here. Venture capital, we've been started doing that about 8 years ago in Italy when there was really nothing. The first year we received 100 business plans. So what's going on in Italy? More or less, I think pretty much what's going on all over the world and in Europe. There's a lot of activity going on. So our ecosystem, I think it's, in a way, we're similar, not only for culturally, except we don't drink wine before noon, but besides that, we have this, what kind of values we can provide to the market as an ecosystem. In Italy, I think Spain is quite similar. First of all, we have a huge talent pool. There's a lot of people unemployed, smart people with education, and that's a great asset. Italy is a rather big market, more or less like Spain, also in the digital space. I think we're doing about 10 billion in e-commerce in Italy at this point. There's great education. We have many universities, just like in Spain. Just in Rome, there are 10 universities, 300,000 students. So there's opportunity there. Problems, difficult to find capital, very difficult to scale. More or less in Italy, I don't know Spain, but in Italy, let's say, deployed money from venture is about 60 million a year, which is nothing. It's more or less what a normal fund in the US would do alone in 1 year. There are about 10 funds. There's many angel investors, but there's about 10 structured funds that do venture. It's hard to exit. Actually, it's getting better. Doing IPOs in Italy, it's easier now. We have a market. The London market is opened up in Italy. And then the DNA of Italians, I think we are messy but creative, entrepreneurial by nature, so that's another asset we can provide. You know, my generation, let's say, we've all spun out our companies between 96 and 2001 when the bubble burst. And after that, I have seen a new generation of people coming into the market. And this is the kind of generation, the kind of people we're looking for and we like to work with. So some companies in Italy, maybe you don't know, startups. So for example, this is a good friend of mine, Vito. Vito Lomele started a Job Rapido, which is now the biggest search engine for jobs in the world. In his kitchen, funding was 300K, so he fundamentally bootstrapped a company that sold for 60 million euros 2 years ago to a British listed publisher. We founded, they started 3 years ago. It's a complementary currency. It's an alternative currency called Sardex that acts in Sardinia. This year we are distribute about 36 million euros in credit without interest and guarantees to entrepreneurs in Sardinia. Again, this company, we funded it, and so far we put 150K. So this is what you can do that we couldn't do in our generation. Now you can start a company and really get some traction with very little money. When we started the company, just the Oracle license, which was practically fundamental for you, we paid 400,000 euros just for our database license 10, 15 years ago. All of this doesn't exist anymore. You have tools. This is another successful Italian company. Cosimo is a friend of mine. I mentored it some years ago. And then he found this other guy. Together they found a company called Decision. Now the company is about 150 people, developers in Latina, and the headquarters in New York. They raised $35 million from the US investor, and they're becoming quite a leading company in social CRM. So it's interesting, again, all these companies have been bootstrapped with little money and great talent. And maybe you know Massimo. We were colleagues in Olivetti many years ago. I was the marketing director. He was the CTO of the company, and he's the founder of Arduino. I don't know if you guys use Arduino. There is in Italy a huge movement of makers, digital fabrication, 3D printing going on. There is a Fab Lab opening up in every city. And Massimo is the inspiration for all of us. So what we do at Dpixel, we do fundamentally seed capital. We started like that. We raised the fund, 9 million euros. We fully invested that fund. Now we're raising the second fund. And then we started to do acceleration. We have a camper. You can see that. We go with the camper all over Italy. Last year we did 60 universities, and entrepreneurs can come on the camper, talk to our deal flow team, and then we put them into our programs to then change this into investments. We also work with big companies on entrepreneurship and acceleration, so we run the equivalent of Waira for Telecom Italia, which is called Working Capital. Last application, we received 4,000 business plans just in Working Capital. We also work with several different people. So I just wanted to tell you some things that I've learned about starting an ecosystem. What we're trying to do here in Salamanca is something that I started to do 8 years ago in Italy, and I think I learned something. I wanted to pass to you this information. So first of all, for those of you who are passionate about ecosystems, it's a good book to read. There's a couple of friends of mine that wrote it in Silicon Valley, and it talks about, what is an innovation ecosystem, and how do you make an innovation ecosystem work and succeed and be successful. So it's called The Rainforest, and I really suggest you to read that. So if you look, from that angle, Europe, I think something like this has been said already. Europe, it's not like the Silicon Valley at all. We are little beautiful islands, but they're all disconnected with each other. We're starting to know each other now, and I think the Commission is doing a great job to pull us all together. So people that are doing things so that we can network and expand the network. But right now, this is Europe. It's great, but it's very small, and small islands are disconnected. And it's true, doing a company is very difficult. Failure is the most common outcome. But it's also true that, also venture capital fails. We write off half of our investments, even more in Europe. But those companies that go forward and become unicorns, like the ones that Isidro was pointing out, the 30 unicorns we build in Europe, more than 1 billion, and there's going to be more coming up. Those are the ones that are going to create jobs in the next year. So we have to. So that's the opportunity you have. And we have seen in Europe finally now a strong, consistent movement of companies starting to become big. So this is the way we need to go. There is also some money in it in Europe, definitely not Silicon Valley, nothing like that, but there is some money, some venture money. So I think we have all the ingredients, in a way, right there, that we need to mix together to make this ecosystem. And again, the most valuable thing of all, we have this huge talent pool that is without a job. So this is the best time to invest in venture capital. So what we need to do, we need to connect. We need to build this big, beautiful island, tightly connected, so that we can collaborate and scale together. So, this is what you really need to do, is connect people, connect international, connect locally, create these networks. Then, I think one thing that we need to do, we need to use our diversity. Our diversity is our strength. That's something that we can beat the Silicon Valley with. For example, Sardex, that company in Sardinia, is totally disconnected from the rest of the planet, and they invented something really brand new, something that didn't exist. Sardex would not have been born in the Silicon Valley, because everything there that gets funded is into a certain mind stream that we don't have, and I think that's a value we can leverage on. And then, if we can build these networks of trust, then we can scale as a continent. And just a couple of few words, because we'll be speaking about it. I'm involved in the accelerator program, the Future Internet, FFPPP, fireware thing that we've been talking about. That's a great opportunity as a VC. I want to tell you that's a great opportunity, because we're talking about Internet of Things. I mean, Internet of Things is great. I've been hearing about that for the last 15 years. But there is a problem if you want to do, if you want to massively deploy Internet of Things application, you need to interoperate in a trusted, secure environment that is telco grade, so it's consistent, is resilient. And you need to interoperate information, data from different companies, application, and providers. Otherwise, this Internet of Things will never work, will never exist. So that's why the European Commission has done that. So there are fundamentally two layers. There is a platform with APIs, and the thing is that if you will be building an application on that platform, you will fundamentally achieve two things. It's going to be interoperable with any other application, so you can start to talk about another guy and exchange your data about the taxi, about the buses, about the metros and whatever. And this platform is pretty much open source. You can put your hands in it. And there are 80 million euros to build applications on top of it, equity free. So Google FFPPP, apply on FS6. Thank you very much.
Before I let this guy go, it's not often that someone like this come to these small events. Before we let Paddy, he's pretty excited to come along. But what is a typical Italian startup like?
What is a typical Italian startup like? In which sense? It's typically small, underfunded, and very mean and lean.
Okay, and what do they do? What's a typical area that they actually?
No, we do everything in Italy. It's, I think that's the beauty of it. And now, especially, I see a huge digital fabrication movement. So in that space of digital fabrication, you really see wild, completely crazy, diverse, 360 degrees innovation. By the way, for those of you that are interested, there's going to be the Maker Faire Europe in Rome at the end of the month, in the beginning of October. There's going to be 80,000 people from all over Europe, and there's going to be 300 makers being selected by Massimo Banzi and an Italian journalist called Riccardo Luna, showcasing the best projects. It's going to be a huge event, so if you want to take a good weekend in Rome, I really suggest you guys to come to the Maker Faire.
That's awesome. When are we going to have a next Ferrari coming from Italy?
Yeah, good point. I don't know, frankly. I mean, again, I think like in Spain, like in Europe in general, we need to build an environment for scaling. I mean, we now have an environment to generate companies. Now we need an environment to bring a company, from 1 to 10 to 100 to 1 billion. Now we don't have a strong infrastructure in that side. So I don't think it's a matter of ideas or talent. I mean, I think that we are all like Zuckerberg in terms of DNA, but we need to build this ecosystem around.
So before I let you go, is there a problem with the government in there, or is it like
no?
Does the government support?
There is traditionally a problem in the government in Italy in anything, and startups likely is not the case. Actually, the other way around. The last 3 years, the different governments, Monti before, Renzi now, are pushing a lot on startups, and we create a new legislation. So if you come and create your company in Italy, you're going to be getting tax incentives, tax reliefs, startup visa. We have it.
Oh my God! Stop right there.
We have regulated equity crowdfunding, so you can you can raise your money on a platform online, equity money online. So there's a bunch of things that we've been doing in Italy. They're not very known in Europe, but they're creating a very good environment.
That's awesome. So even Italy's ahead of Spain, and that's amazing. Thanks so much. Grazie mille.
Thank you.